Hello there. How are you? My name is Paul Hanritter. I do a process and I have a website called awakeningyou.net where I basically talk about awakening topics and I help people through breath work and coaching, counseling, etc. Now, before following me, you might want to understand a little bit about what my intentions are. So my intentions are basically to use my life experience and the process I've used to awaken as showing a possibility to other people so that they can maybe implement those same things in their life and see the same changes that I have seen in my life. I wouldn't say by any means my life is perfect, but I've kind of come out of a deep hole and I'm basically at the point where my dreams and possibilities are starting to come true, and mastering my mindset, mastering the program that I've been programmed with is starting to become my daily process, the way I act now, instead of unconsciously walking through life, consciously understanding what thoughts I'm in, what vibrations I'm in, and what things are kind of shooting me in the head before I even get started. So let's begin where it all started. So we basically are facets of God that are having a human experience. And if that sends you running away screaming, that's your choice. But basically, we have far more power than we've been allowed to believe we have. We've lived in things like self-victimization, basically giving our power to other people, entities, ideas like cabals and governments and other things, basically saying that they know better for ourselves, making them have our parent role, etc., when they're really not serving us, they're serving themselves. So our whole world, our whole reality, our education systems, our religions, our TV, our news, our media, etc., is all designed to basically kind of lull us to sleep and then basically give our money to our government and other people that believe that they deserve it more than us, energy companies, etc. We call it business, we call it things that we need to do, but your birthright as a human being was to be able to live. But we are lulled into a program that we can't see and is very carefully hidden in plain sight, that basically makes us kind of pledge ourselves to a job to be able to survive, when a lot of us don't enjoy our lives in those jobs and these other things. And then we have basically landlords, business owners, bosses, etc., that are basically not grown up little children, still children in their 50s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, etc. Even our parents may be in their unexplored little inner child still. So essentially, we're kind of stuck in a program. And a lot of people may not agree, but there are some things out there that basically talk about the program. The movies in our popular media, something called The Matrix. You may or may not believe it, but I've got enough evidence in my personal experience to be able to say that a lot of what's going on there is very similar to what's happening here. We may not be growing in pods, etc., but basically our mental activities, our whole idea of reality is one we call collective reality, is basically based around a system of control that serves very few people. You can understand that by understanding how things like taxes work and stuff. I don't know if you've ever advanced in a job, but basically the tax rates increase as you improve. So basically keep you earning the same amount of money with very small changes. You'll start to understand, if you do a little bit of research, that taxes and other things are given to rich people. They're not even given to the country. In North America, all the tax systems, etc., that and the systems that do that are all related back to the Bank of England and to England. You can go do the research for yourself if you like, but they're not going to pay the country. If you add up the numbers, and what is there, 24 million people in Canada, and the basic tax rates, and counting out children and old people and other things, the numbers do not add up. There's like 10 times what the government gets taken. Where's the rest go? So we're living in this system, and we're trained from the minute we grow up by Walt Disney cartoons and other things. Basically, we're here to do 5 things: be born, grow up, get an education, go to school, get an education, go to school, get married, buy a house, have a job. It's the escalator. Basically, everybody plans for this. Young women nowadays are planning for their wedding and Cinderella level weddings and other things, because Disney puts this program of what an amazing life is into their heads before they even can decide for themselves. And then your parents grew up basically having a job, and the only way safe is to make money and do things related to making money. So they're in a program, and they're putting it into your ear from the minute you're born. I don't know how much you know, but up until the age of 7, everything that we receive from our parents is unfiltered. We have no cognitive way to basically address what's being told to us. And then our TV programs, our cartoons. Have you ever watched some of the cartoons and the messages that are being programmed into our children's heads? So the more you dig in, the more you're going to start to find out that there's some agendas and programs running outside of ourselves that are programmed into us. You may not like it, but some would call it enslaving us into serving a system and not focusing on ourselves at all. So that may be a big smash. That may make people uncomfortable. I'm just asking you to breathe and basically sit with it. Let it percolate inside your head. You are unconsciously doing things that you think are right based on a program and truths that may not be true. So basically, to move outside of this and to move up, we need to start asking a lot of questions. Put your hand on your heart right now, just like I am. Take a deep breath. Let it out with some noise. Take 3 of them total. Just feel grounded in your chair or wherever you're sitting, and just start to ask yourself, am I happy with what my life is right now? Most of us will say not. I'm not. Things aren't working out. Abundance isn't flowing. Relationships aren't working. For what reason? You can start to ask yourself that. Just ask. There may be no other person in the room. There may be, you're not expecting an answer from someone. You're starting to put the question into the reality, your reality. Okay? Now, you might not get an answer right away. Some people get an answer. Sometimes when it happens for me, it's kind of in my own voice. It's like, oh yeah, why is this happening? Well, they're controlling you. You allied with this program so you could have an experience. You could stay small for as long as possible and basically start learning what's going on in your life. So where are you learning? What are you learning? I have programs around mother issues and other things that went into my marriage and then eventually having a divorce and into my relationships. There's been things that have happening in the reality, like the CV that we've been all through, and it destroyed my business and it took the home that was mine, all meant to shrink me down. In Canada, we had this thing that was called CERB, C-E-R-B. It was like COVID relief. And basically, after accepting and allowing me to have it, and I met all the requirements, they changed the rules and then basically said I owe them $38,000 in debt. And they basically take all my tax returns and all the monies that are owing back to me and basically steal from me after changing the rules. And then they don't even have a system. It's like an 18-month wait time right now to even be addressed or to have because the system has all the power and it can do whatever the fuck it wants and basically call you a criminal for meeting the rules, which has sent a whole bunch of Canadian people into the toilet as far as I'm concerned. Bankruptcies, debt, etc., at all-time highs. When your business is closed down and you essentially can't serve people and you can't do anything, but the landlord still gets all his rent and all these kind of things. pretty one-sided fucking bullshit that happened. So I'm not here to rail against it. I'm here to start to understand what's going on inside of you. I'm aware. There's the first one. Are you aware of what's going on inside your body right now? Do a scan of your body. Start to say, okay, what's going on? A lot of times in my past, basically the tongue would be pushing it, or my tongue would be pushing against the roof of my mouth all the time, or my jaw would be tight, or I'd be holding my breath. I'd just be taking really shallow breaths. Most people in this world are taking shallow breaths. That usually means that you don't feel safe in your body, safe in your world, safe in your nervous system. So when you're not safe in your nervous system, what's going to happen? Your body's going to tighten up. You're going to get all these cortisol things. You're probably going to gain weight. You're probably not going to feel safe. You're not going to be breathing deeply. What's going on? Why is that? Oh, work's awful, and my partner's this, and I got to pay the bills, and I got to save for retirement. I got to save for my kids' education, and all these things. All part of the program that basically tells you that you got to work harder. Is that not what somebody that would be whipping you and telling you? They're just using systems and ways of belief to tell you to work harder. I'll tell you right now, I was an engineer. I went all the way up into the management levels in a company called Nortel, and I was making almost $180,000 a year at one point. When I went from 150 to 180 because I did some good stuff and got promoted, basically I went to a 55% tax bracket. The first time that I seen that was possible, that the government would take more than I got. So more than half. I was only making 45%. Literally, I moved up and I was actually making less money from making more money by a bunch of rules. The system is sent to level us all down and keep us all down. And basically I lost hope. Shortly after that was death and taxes. That was all my life was. And about the same time, the company went bankrupt out from under me, and basically my pension and other things all got destroyed overnight. All my security, all my safety. So all of a sudden I was like face planted on the road and had to go on unemployment and try and understand what the hell was going on. At the same time, I was starting to realize that my marriage was not for me. It was about giving my love to my wife. And basically, there was no intimacy. There was no connection. There was no nothing. After the kids came, and I waited a long time afterwards. I wasn't just like, because postpartum and other things were all crazy. But I realized that my wife really wasn't doing her work, inner work. She had a bunch of traumas, and she was projecting them on me and making it all my fault. But at the same time, I was bringing all the money home and protecting her and giving her a good home and this kind of stuff. And one day it got to the point where I would kiss my wife, nothing messy, just a kiss on the lips, and she'd unconsciously wipe them off. What the hell's going on? Is this love? Well, I've learned a lot since then. A lot of people marry for safety. They have traumas. My wife had an undisclosed rape trauma. She was a Japanese girl, and it was with a Western man when she was 15 years old. She referred to it indirectly and a whole bunch of things. I had to put all the pieces together because she would never discuss it. But it made me into a sexless marriage with a woman where touch is my love language, and it was basically killing me when all of a sudden I couldn't touch or kiss or hug or do anything with my wife because she was triggered in that trauma. Not that I did anything ever violent or vicious to her. It was all about loving, respect, but that projection came on me. Her program basically destroyed my marriage. And when she wouldn't talk about it, wouldn't deal with it, wouldn't wake up, and I spent a lot of time trying to get her to, I had no choice. It was that or die. My guidance of my angels basically came to me and said, if you do not have a divorce, you'll die within 5 months of a heart attack, which is a possibility I've learned. So I was forced to take self-accountability to move through this event. So these events basically tore me down and started to make me realize I lost half my house, everything that I had to sell everything, had to move out of my own house, etc., because my wife wouldn't deal with her responsibilities. I tried everything in my power, and it was getting to the point that I was in pain, physical pain. So I had to move and make a choice and move on. Hardest thing I've ever done. It smashed me for probably 5 years. That was over 12 years ago now. But it woke me up in a way that's never changed. And it's changed me so massively. It's a blessing. Some might call it negative and bad and painful, and I lost everything and all this kind of stuff. I haven't. Because a house doesn't make me safe. A marriage doesn't make me safe. Having kids doesn't make me safe. I'm still a father. I still am accountable to my children and other things. Yes, my children got hurt by that, but I was barely capable of taking care of myself in that situation. The fact I chose self-love changed a lot of things. And as I moved out and I started over and I went through some of the same patterns, I started to realize I attracted low vibrational women into my life, which I don't anymore. But those are boundaries, and those are things that I needed to learn. So I mentioned the term rebuilding your reality. And this is a process that I'm starting to write a book on. It's 5 foundational principles, and I'll share them here, and you can start to implement them in your life if that helps you. The first one is self-responsibility. What does that mean? Self-responsibility means you're taking responsibility for everything that's happening in your life. Instead of saying, oh, I'm a victim, that guy did something to me, the government's doing something to me, this kind of stuff. No, look at this. 3 fingers are pointing right back at me. So every time you're pointing at somebody else and being the victim, 3 of them are pointing at you. I'm not a victim. Can you put your hand up and say, I am not a victim, or I am no longer a victim? I am in my power. Victim gives your power to someone else, so you can't change it. And now all of a sudden you have to wait for that thing to change before you can take your power back. If you take self-responsibility, everything changes. For some reason, that's happening for me instead of to me. Notice I had to even check myself. And as I'm consciously creating the words, I'm basically saying, why is this happening for me? And I love it, because now I can make a conscious choice. In that moment, you heard me take a small pause, and instead of happening to me, the victim comes up. No, it's happening for me. What am I learning from this? You're going to find it may take a while, because it's sometimes in a pattern, in a loop inside your head. But until you become consciously aware of what loops you're running in your head, your reality is not going to change. So self-responsibility is the first one. Everything's happening for me. There's always a lesson. There's something that's helping me. And if we can take that responsibility, things change. Next one is accountability. What do I do when I feel triggered, or I feel angry, or I feel frustrated, or other things? Do I basically say, shut the fuck up, I don't want to talk to you, or whatever, and blame you because you're making me feel uncomfortable? No. That uncomfortability is something that's happening in me because that person is talking to me or saying something in a tone that may remind me of my father or whatever. It's not their responsibility to heal me for the shit that my father did. They may have come into my life to be able to help me see through that. So what do I do? Well, the biggest one that you can do is take a deep breath. Sometimes if somebody's being angry at you, you put your hand up and say, excuse me, I'm a little triggered right now. We're going to talk in a little bit. I'm going to step away. And they're like, what the hell's that? Nobody's ever done that to me before. But you're honoring yourself. Take some deep breaths. If you cough, that's a normal thing. That can be grief stuck in our diaphragm. Next thing is ask yourself, what's going on? Why is this? When was the first time that this happened? You're going to find out if you sit with it long enough. Keep breathing. Let the energy move. You're going to start to say, oh, my dad used to yell at me or use that tone or put his finger up like that to me, and I'm not okay with that. Well, that person that did it is just a symbol of your father. What if you dealt with it inside of you? Well, your dad was an angry man, or your mom was an angry person, or whatever, and they didn't know that they did it. And that's what your grandfather did, and their dad did to them. So that's all they know. So they'll basically shut you down. My dad used to yell at me all the time. When he gets triggered, he'll yell. He's like, shut up, you don't need to talk to me, or whatever. And all I can see is a little child in him. But I've grown so much that the last time that it happened, I basically said, you do not ever speak to me like that again. And he did not know what was going on. Well, I'm 54 years old. Yes, he's 80 years old, but that does not justify losing his shit on me. So now I've set a boundary. He's changing. He may be too old or whatever to be able to change or whatever, but I'm not going to accept that. What do you accept into your life that pisses you off, makes you feel this big? Accountability. Sometimes you're going to have some hard discussions. That gets us into the next ones. The third one is vulnerability. Are you vulnerable and true about the things that have made you or are wounds to you or are uncomfortable to you? Are you? Do you talk about it? Do you talk openly about it? Or do you hide it and you stay in the lie? And it's like, hey, you're not going to hear that I got raped as a child. This isn't mine. Or my father beat me over eating my vegetables. That's the truth. Well, that was. Well, how many other people had a father that was violent towards them and other things? I thought I had the best childhood in the world until one day I woke up that every time a man would yell, I instantly retracted in fear. Until one day I grew up and I said, no more. It was with a client, what I call a little boy that was a manager of a auction company. He basically, I said, I need a deposit on this. I'm buying $8,000 worth of hardware. I need a 60% deposit to be able to on the project to basically order this stuff because I can't support that long term. And he's like, oh, no, you come and install it and you do this. The check's sitting on his desk. He showed it to me. And I know his boss, who I'm good friends with, but he had to play the power trip game. And basically, instead of getting triggered and dealing with that and the way he was yelling and stuff like that, it's like, do you want this job done or not? He's like, yeah, well, you got to do it. And it's like, no, I don't have to do anything. I'm about to put $8,000 out for you. And I'm just asking to cover my expenses until you guys pay the full bill. And I justified it to him. I talked to him very calmly and I wouldn't let him play his game. And he backed right down and handed me the check. Because that's how little people get their rocks off, of making other people responsible for their fears, their angers, their whatever. So he wasn't being vulnerable about what it was his truth or what he was trying to protect the company or he's trying to do this or trying to do that, but doing it in a way that was very indirect and not safe. So I had a massive win in that moment, and clients don't do that to me anymore. The next term, the fourth one, is directness. Are you direct with people or are you indirect? It's like, hey, honey, let's go have some fun or whatever. When it's like, hey, I'm really feeling hot towards you. I'd love to be sexual with you or something like that. Not too direct, like to make things uncomfortable or whatever, but speaking for what you want. Maybe she wants the same thing. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe you haven't spent enough time together or whatever. Are you indirect in like, oh, you're really being a bummer or whatever? It's like, what's that person going to take or whatever from that? Well, you're really low vibrational and it's pulling me down and I really don't want to be around you right now unless you can change that. That other person's like, oh, I didn't know I was really low vibrational and I didn't know I felt like that kind of thing. The two get a completely different response. One's like, indirect feels really sloppy and ugly and uncomfortable. Directness perks people's ears up. They might make a change. They might start to realize their part in what's going on. So that's the fourth one. The fifth one is communications. And this is the most vital thing you can ever have in your life. Do you communicate openly with people about what is going on in your life, what you're not loving, what's uncomfortable? Do you communicate boundaries? Do you communicate consent? Do you say yes when you mean yes, or no when you mean no? Or do you say, oh, yeah, I guess so, or I think so, or I guess, or whatever, and then hate yourself afterwards because you said kind of yes, the other person didn't ask for a full commitment, so you were not self-responsible, and then basically you can claim the victim card again. Oh, well, you did this to me, and well, I'd like to give you a hug. Is that okay? I guess so. Well, I would never hug a person now that says I guess so. Do you want it or not? I guess you don't want it, so have a good day. Weak people hide behind lack of self-responsibility and lack of accountability, lack of directness, all these things, and it's become societally acceptable to allow people to do these things. And then flip their mind afterwards and basically say, I didn't ever agreed, and you did something to me, or you violated me, or whatever. Bullshit. When you have these 5 foundational principles going for your life, that stuff ends. Directness. Do you want this same thing? Do you want me to give you a hug? Yet in directness. Yes, I'd love a hug. I love hugs. For me, it's an absolute yes. But if it's a person that's really low vibrational or a woman that's half naked or something, I might not feel comfortable with that. I may do it because I'm hoping that maybe something's going to happen out of it or whatever, and then hate myself afterwards. No way. I would not ever do that. It's all about self-loving choices. And I'll tell you right now, self-love in directness and communication is speaking for what you want, always, in directness. Everything changes. When you're vulnerable, if I lead with my vulnerability and that I'm scared or I'm uncomfortable, I'm feeling a strong emotion or whatever, that other person can probably read that energy, and now you've been truthful about it and honest, and it feels so much better. And they're like, oh, okay, I felt that. I felt you're a little bit scared and I felt a little uncomfortable, and okay, now I understand why. Oh, you just got off a divorce, or you just left a relationship, or you did whatever. All of a sudden now, wow, massive, massive growth comes from this. So I want you to just, like I said, once again, put your hand on your heart. Breathe in. Start to ask yourself, replay this video as many times as you need. Start to ask yourself, are you doing these things for you? Are you self-loving in your choices? Are you self-loving in being accountable, self-responsible, vulnerable, being direct in your communications, and then communicating clearly about what you want? More than likely, you're going to find that one of these key tests of what's going on is basically giving your power away, or you lying about yourself, or not being self-loving to yourself. And once you can see all those things, and once you can start to recognize them in yourself and then start to make conscious changes, okay, I've given you 5 massive tools that will change everything if you start to implement them. Every time something's not working out, am I being self-responsible about this? Is this something that's happening for me or to me? To me is like this, and you give all my power and you're my perpetrator and I'm just the victim and I'm just going to lay over here and die. Or, woo, no, you don't get to talk to me like that anymore. Thank you. I was working with a woman a while back and her boss was a real asshole. And I said, have you ever said that you don't appreciate him talking to you like that or yelling at you or whatever? And she's like, no, I could never do that. And she changed. She tried it and something changed. That boss was taking from people because he was the boss and he was more important and blah, 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 blah. But the minute she stood up for herself, he realized he couldn't take anymore. But before, she was kind of giving in an unconscious way and not liking it and hating him and pointing the finger and being a victim to it or whatever. Ultimately, who owns it? Do I let people trample all over me? Do I stay in a job that doesn't serve me? You may say, I have to. I have no choice. I've got kids. I got money. There's other jobs out there. There may be better bosses. Who's going to choose a better world for you? You, right there. Start pointing your finger. I get to choose. Everything's a choice. To continue to be under a boss like that and allow it to continue is consent, whether you like it or not. You can go home and whine and bitch and complain about it, but if you don't say a word to him, he's never going to know. And that could be a female boss too. Make some simple choices and start to see what changes. Your reality will change because your reality is based on a bunch of beliefs and truths that aren't absolutely true for you. You can start to shift them once you start saying, that doesn't work for me. This is driving me nuts. This is making me this small. This is giving me a heart attack. This is giving me high blood pressure. This is giving me all these things. The system's designed to do all that, to keep you weak and small until one day you make a choice. Are you ready to make that choice? AwakeningU.net is the website. I'm Paul Hanreader. Let's talk if this brings up some ideas for you. Thank you.